I have been playing this game of how much can I expand my receiving muscle? How much can I open myself up to receiving? I'm just going to continue being the same giving, generous person that I always have been. But now I'm also going to focus on expanding my receiving muscle, knowing that the more I'm able to receive, the more I'm able to ultimately give as well.
Welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast, your guide for living a life by design. Here, we explore the journey of becoming an outlier, finding your purpose, mastering your mindset, optimizing your health, achieving financial freedom, and building a life centered around your passions. So tune in, transform, and thrive. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset. Let the journey begin. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Robin Schley, and today our guest is going to teach us the secret of creating and maintaining profitable relationships. Kevin Thompson sold $16.1 million of his own products and services solely through strategic partnerships. Kevin's also the host of the $1 Million Relationships podcast and founder of the Impact and Legacy Collective, where he creates positive change on a global scale by facilitating relationships that impact millions of people. Kevin, welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Robin. I've really been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. You know, I had a chance to come onto your show. You and I've got a chance to get to know each other a little bit. And you're a great connector. You're one of those people who really gets how important it is to make really good connections, meet really good people, and do really good things by having an incredible network of people.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, I have long believed that as entrepreneurs, relationships are our most valuable asset, and everything else stems from that. And I am a really blessed guy, Rodman. I get to be this guy who facilitates relationships that impact millions of people's lives. And of course, the natural and organic byproduct of doing that is that millions of dollars in revenue get created as well. And for me, you know, revenue is the metric, one of the big metrics that helps me gauge effectiveness. It is definitely not the motivation for doing what I do. Like I said, it's the natural and organic byproduct of just focusing on creating valuable relationships.
Well, and you're not just a collector of good people, you're a connector of good people. So when you're making these relationships, you're not just about going, okay, I'm going to make this and I'm going to cultivate it for me. You're like, I'm going to cultivate this relationship for my entire network. If I find somebody who's good, if I find somebody who's important to somebody else, I'm going to make sure that I make that connection too.
Oh, absolutely. That's where the horsepower is. That's where we can really make an impact, is by bringing like-minded people together who are already doing great things, who are already making a big and substantial impact in the world, bringing those kind of people together, because they can do far more together than any of them could do on their own without each other.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's about, a lot of people come into life, they think about their relationships as being competitive, but there's the other people who think about it as being collaborative. How can I lift each other up? And to truly be successful in life, there's some people who are very competitive and they're very successful in life, but the enjoyment in life comes in when you can share those things, when you can collaborate and be a part of something bigger.
Absolutely. Being able to collaborate and not just collaborate on what we can do together and accomplish together and what kind of impact we can have together, but also just being able to collaborate in being able to support each other, because, entrepreneurs, we're usually really great at this finite set of, we have these gifts and abilities, God-given gifts and abilities. And pretty much everything outside of that, we're not really good at. And so to be able to just openly talk about that in the, among the right kinds of people, like, hey, I'm really good at this thing here, and we're doing really well here, but I could really use some help and support over here with this. and to be able to have those kinds of conversations and just speak openly and candidly in the right people, in the right groups of people, where we just know we're not going to get an ounce of judgment from anybody, that we're going to be met with nothing but love and support from other like-minded entrepreneurs who have years of experience and expertise in doing what they do, and they want to see us win too. That's a pretty powerful point.
Yeah, that is powerful. And, I think about in my book, The Outlier Mindset, we talk about the 7 tenets of an outlier. And this really touches on two of them. It touches on number one, building your tribe, which, successful people know the power of building a really strong community. And the other one is the leading with service. And, for me, I've adopted this my entire life where I'm not going to lead with an act. I'm going to lead with serving others. And then knowing that that's going to come back around and make me stronger and healthier. You don't do it for those reasons, but it's just a natural progression that when you're leading with service, you're going to get a lot back in return.
That's right. That's right. And I'll tell you, when COVID hit a few years ago, and that impacted a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs were able to pivot successfully. A lot of entrepreneurs, quite honestly, because of COVID, it ended up being a boon. I mean, Zoom and these platforms like that. I mean, talk about COVID was a boon for Zoom. Lots of people started using Zoom because of COVID. But like I said, a lot of entrepreneurs had to pivot, and a lot of entrepreneurs had to completely get out of the business that they were in because COVID would no longer support, because it impacted their business that dramatically. And what I really learned through going through that process was the value of relationships, because live events were off the table for a period of time. And so all these entrepreneurs who were used to getting together in person and collaborating and all that, they didn't have that as an option to get together. And so I just started playing around on Zoom a little bit and just started hosting little get-togethers and said, hey, I'm going to start getting entrepreneurs together. And I'll tell you, we've been doing it ever since, and just coming from this place of service. And when we are in service of others, it is almost impossible to be concerned about what's going on in the outside world and all the other stuff that's going on, because just continually being in service of others, not only does it feel so good, but when we're just in alignment with that, people know it and they want to be around us.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's one of those things where people expect other people to come to their life to say, what can you do for me? But when they get that person that comes into their life that says, hey, how can I serve you? How can I lift you up? I like your mission. I love what you're doing. I want to make sure that I'm supporting you in any way that I can. And, people get a little bit shocked on that, because there are so many people who come with the other thing going, hey, I need this. How can you perform? What can you do for me? How can you do it? So when you get those people in your life that are coming from that position of giving, it's just a whole different thing.
Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. When we just show up to give, to help, to serve, to pour into others, it's a game changer. It's a game changer, and that's what causes people to just want to be around us more, because of how we show up, and we get to be in complete control of that.
Yeah. Well, how do you think? I mean, what causes that? Is it selfishness? Is it greediness? The people that don't lead with that service, or who take so much, and we know who the takers are.
Mm-hmm.
You might be fooled by them in the beginning, but it doesn't take long to figure out who's in a relationship just to extract from it. And then you can eliminate those people.
Yeah.
But I mean, what causes that? Do you think that's a greedy thing? Do you think it's selfish?
I haven't given it a whole lot of thought, but I think, just in my own experience, maybe it's because people feel like there's not enough to go around. That it's a pie, and there's only so much of it, and so therefore I want to get as much of it as I possibly can. And if somebody else is taking more of that pie, then that leaves less for me. Versus if we come from this place of, there is more than enough to go around. there is an abundance of opportunity. And I just want to focus on serving those who are in alignment with that and who they want to show up that way too and stuff. And like you said, it doesn't take long to recognize who the givers are and who the takers are, because they're just going to show up that way, and it's going to be relevant or evidence in a very quick amount of time who's who. And we just surround ourselves with people who are givers like us. And I think as a general rule, I know for me, all my life, I've been this giving, generous person. But for most of my life, until 12 years ago, I pretty much sucked when it came to receiving. And until a good friend of mine, Jesse Elder, really shared some perspective that totally changed my paradigm, that opened up, and I was like, wow, I never realized that before. And so ever since then, I have been playing this game of how much can I expand my receiving muscle? How much can I open myself up to receiving? I'm just going to continue being the same giving, generous person that I always have been. But now I'm also going to focus on expanding my receiving muscle, knowing that the more I'm able to receive, the more I'm able to ultimately give as well. And, I used to think that, successful entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs running successful companies, that they had this whole giving and receiving thing already figured out. But I was incorrect on that. 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle still applies. And so a lot of the work that I get to do is just helping entrepreneurs expand their own receiving muscles so that they can ultimately give more.
Yeah, I think it's tough for some people to receive. I
Oh,
mean, it's even for me. I'm such a giver that a lot of times it's really hard for me, even if somebody can say, "I want you to take this. I want you to have this." And sometimes I'm always even reluctant there because, and I don't know if that's one of those things where I grew up in a place where it's like I want to outgive people,
hmm
and sometimes maybe I don't deserve the receiving because I have not quite given enough. But it's something that a lot of people I think have, and they got to work through.
totally. I know I sure did. Some of the stuff that you were just describing, I would not ask in many cases for what I wanted because I didn't want to bother other people. I didn't want to inconvenience them. I didn't want them to think that I was a taker. Whatever reasons that was. And then also, I think that I maybe I'm just trying to kind of sit with this because it's been 12 years now. I in some ways I probably felt like I was undeserving, you know and that I didn't deserve to really receive. And but when my buddy Jesse pointed out to me, he's like, Kevin, he's like, giving and receiving, it's kind of like breathing. If I were to tell you, that you can only do one or the other. You can only breathe in or you can only breathe out. And you had to choose which one you were going to do. Well, you realize that that's completely ludicrous. You have to do both. And giving and receiving is the same way. You need to do both. And when you do both, now you open yourself up to receiving more and you can ultimately give far more. And so, I'll give you an example of this in action. So, August of 2017, I was hosting an event, actually right here at my home, right on the other side of this wall in my living room. And I was inviting entrepreneurs to this event. And it was the very first in-person event I had ever hosted for the purpose of I wanted to invite these entrepreneurs because I wanted to get them connected and get them in conversation with each other and let them create new relationships with each other that would allow each of them to expand their business and make a bigger impact in the world. And so I was inviting entrepreneurs. I had made the list of entrepreneurs I wanted to invite, and I was inviting them. And one of the guys I invited was my friend Jeff Latham. He's actually a real estate agent. He's local here to us in Washington State. And through talking with him and inviting him, he's like, absolutely, Kev, I'm definitely going to come. And my friend Michael, I'm going to connect you with him because, man, this is going to be right up his alley, and he's going to want to come. And so you need to make sure and invite him. And so he connected Michael and I. And a week or so later, Mike and I hopped on the phone and had a conversation. And sure enough, Mike was like, "Man, Kev, if you're inviting me, I totally want to come to this." And I'm like, "Absolutely." I was like, and so I was like, "I'll get you the payment info." And as we were ending our conversation, he's like, "Kevin, I'm just going to be completely candid with you." He's like, I'm really stoked to come to this thing. And he's like, "But my biggest concern is how am I going to best be able to contribute and help serve the other participants?" And I told him, I said, "Michael," I said, "for one, the fact that that's your biggest concern, it speaks volumes about who you are as a person. And I'm just going to let you know right now, you just come with the intention that you want to do that, that you want to show up, to contribute, to help, to serve, to pour into the other participants. And the how to do that will make itself known. You will just know. You don't have, so you can just let that weight go and just know that you set the intention, and the how will make itself known while you're here." And he's like, "Kev," he's like, "I'm totally in alignment with that." And he's like, "That's a good answer for me. And I believe you, that will happen." And so we ended the conversation. Well, 2 days later, he calls me up and he's like, "Kev," he's like, "I have just been given a lot of thought to this. And he's like, if we can fit this in, if you think your folks will like it, if there's a way to make this work," he's like, "I know you're up north of Seattle about 40 miles, but he's like, I'm down here in Seattle." He's like, "I've got this 65-foot post. And I'll tell you, August is such a beautiful time of year here in Seattle." And he's like, "I would love to host you and everybody you got coming. I would love to host you on the boat and take you cruising around Seattle and stuff." And I'm like, "Wow." I'm like, "That's really nice." I was like, "Michael," I was like, "how much do you need for that?" And he's like, "Kevin, I don't want anything." He's like, "This is my contribution." He's like, I've been thinking about this." And I was like, in Rodman, there would have been a time prior to that interaction with Jesse a few years prior to this, that I would have been like, "Michael, my goodness. I mean, you're investing your time and money already to come here. You don't need to do all this. You don't need to." I would have totally shut him down. And yet he had spent 2 days thinking about how he could contribute to this whole experience. And that's what he came up with. That would have been the worst thing I could have done, was shut him down on that. You know.
Yeah, that
And
would have been a total disservice.
it would have totally been. It totally would have been. And, so I was like, man, I was like, "Michael, thank you so much. This is really an amazingly generous. Let's figure out how we can make this happen." And we did. And that was in August of 2017. Michael and I have done a couple other events on his boat since then. And in fact, 2 years later, he got a hold of me because he was like, "Kev," he's like, "summer's coming again. We haven't done anything on the boat together in 2 years. We got to do something on the boat again." He's like, "Kev, I love the people that you hang out with. I want to host you guys again." I mean, so he had to spur me on. Let's do something else on the boat. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you wouldn't have to ask me twice. I love
Right.
being on the boat. I'd been like, I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
you talked a little bit about abundance, and I've always come from the point of we live in this world of abundance. There's enough for everybody, but unfortunately, that it just can't seem to get around to everybody. Even though there is so much of everything, there's enough for everybody. But the one thing I think about too is people who want to look at other people, maybe that are in a business that competes with them, but they look at them as competitors instead of collaborators, right? And for me, it's always been a little bit different. I've always looked at people and said, I don't care if you're in the same business I am. There's plenty for all of us. How can we lift each other up and make each other better and put better things into the world and make our industry look better and make our what we do look better? How can we work together? But a lot of people are closed for business. They're like, "No, you're my competitor. I'm not going to give you any ideas. I'm always going to try to be ahead of you. I'm always going to try to be beating you." How do you get people out of that mindset and that way of thinking? How can they adjust their paradigm a little bit to think of it just a little bit differently? Like, this doesn't have to be my competitor. they can truly be a collaborator.
Well, when we surround ourselves with like-minded people who are just giving, generous people, that's how they show up. They show up wanting to help, to serve, to contribute, to pour into others. That's just how they show. They couldn't even show up any other way than that. And so those people, they are also the kind of people that believe in abundance. There's plenty to go around. And so even if somebody is in the same industry as us, the same business as us, they are they have things that they're doing that they excel at that might not be exactly at what we excel at. And so having that brain trust and being able to share ideas and information is incredibly valuable. And also, there are times when, like, maybe we do not have the bandwidth to accept a new client and stuff or what have you. And to be able to have somebody else that we can just refer to, that we know is a great service provider as well. Or that they do something that's a little bit different or something outside of what we do that we can refer as well. And we become these allies rather than competitors. And
Mm.
and you're right. A lot of people, they do have that mindset of like, oh, well, we're in the same business. Well, you know what? You're missing out on so much because just going into any relationship, any conversation with this collaborative mindset of, you know what? Because what our real goal is here as entrepreneurs when we're in collaborations, it's not to sell our stuff. It's not to try to pitch our products or services or anything like that. Our goal is to help others further the relationship that they already have with the people in their lives. That could be their customers, their clients, what have you. So, how can we bring our gifts and our abilities to the table to help this person further the relationship that they already have with their clients and their prospects? And when we show up that way and they know that that is our intention, now all of a sudden we open up the conversation to have an amazing collaborative discussion together. And
Oh,
what ultimately comes from that, I mean, I have had so many conversations like that over the years that, what ultimately comes from that is so much bigger, so much better than anything that we could have possibly envisioned on our own when we're focused on selling, on how do I sell my product? How do I sell my service?
yeah. I kind of feel too like, there's so much knowledge and knowledge is power, right? And the thing about it is we'll learn new things, we'll take in new information, we'll get this great new whatever it might be. Maybe it's AI for an example, because AI is expanding so quickly. But I feel like I know a lot, but there are so many people. It's amazing to me. If you get in a room, like if you took 10 people and got them into a room and said, hey, guess what? Today we're going to share with each other an AI trick. Whatever it might be, you have yours, you have yours, you have yours. We all have these different ideas or these things that we've used that could really help us be incredible in what we're doing day to day. But getting that brain trust together in a room just to collaborate on things that I might not have known. I'll sit in a room with some people and they'll bring a lot of things to the table that I had no idea of, and I'm blown away. So the thing, again, with the power of people, the power of getting a lot of people together, you can really expedite your learning curves. You can really expedite how quickly you can build your business, how quickly you can gain that knowledge that you need to be that outlier, to be exceptional.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We can do far more together collaborating with like minded people than we could ever possibly achieve on our own.
Yeah. Well, and everybody's got so many different strengths. And I know that I've sat in one year, you brought a group of us together, and it was a smart, intelligent, a group that I came away with going, wow, those are just really strong people.
Yeah.
And, it was a process that got me thinking a lot more about. I know I've got a lot of great networks. I work with a lot of great people. But just to get in a room with other people who are doing things, you brought in a PR gentleman who basically, he was shaking things up in the PR world
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
He changed things. He came in, and I don't want to say he burned down what was the current system, but he definitely was a trendsetter in doing things differently.
Yes.
And even at, I forget how old he is. He's up there in age now, But man, what a great guy! What an incredible person to hear about his journey, what he did in his life, how he did it, and he's still out there doing it, which is a
Yeah,
great thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He came up with this thing of we're not going to charge like all the other big PR agencies, which is just charging big retainers. He's like, we are going to charge solely based on PR that's actually gotten, articles published, stories published. We're gonna charge based on results. And
Yeah.
what a unique thing that has now, all these years later, has been separating himself and his agency apart from all the other PR agencies.
Yeah. No, it's exceptional. Hey, but what do you think people need to do if they're going to change this paradigm, this mindset of uh, being not enough or trying to keep everything to themselves, who aren't networking, who aren't finding those tribes of people? What does that person do if they're sitting there listening to this podcast right now, saying, "Wow, I really need to make some changes, and I need to start building my network"?
Okay, so there's two specific things. The first thing is what I call active appreciation. Now, I'm not going to lay claim to this. My buddy Jesse Elder, 12 years ago, in this whole conversation about giving and receiving, he kind of shared this concept with me, and I've been using it ever since. So no matter how successful somebody is, no matter how big their business is, no matter how great things look from the outside looking in, there is not a person on the face of this earth that gets too much appreciation.
Right.
And so, what I tell people is like, we all have cell phones, and in our cell phones we have contacts, and for the purpose of this exercise, which I call the active appreciation exercise, it doesn't matter who we're going to send these messages to. So over the course of the next 24 hours, I want you to send text messages to 10 people. It can be family, it can be friends, it can be business associates. It doesn't matter. I just want you and them to have this experience of this active appreciation challenge. So what you're going to do, you're going to send 10 messages to 10 people, and you're going to let them know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them. You're not going to ask for anything in return. You're not even going to ask for a response in return. But you watch what happens over the next 24 hours when you do this. You are going to have such an amazing experience. So are they. And what you're going to realize is that you caused that to happen. Your actions caused that to happen. You're going to be like, man, Kev, that was way cool. And I want to experience a whole lot more of that. And so the whole goal in giving you this exercise and this challenge is that so that you can just have this experience and you can share this experience with others, because once you have it, you're going to be like, yeah, I want to experience more of that. And then I'm just going to challenge you, just make this part of who you are and how you show up. Show appreciation to people every day. And it can be anybody. It can be the gal at the post office counter. It can be the person who takes your order at the restaurant. Anybody, just be genuinely appreciative. And especially when it comes to our businesses and the people around our businesses, just being genuinely appreciative, because that's how we open doors. That's how we start conversation. And so now the second thing, once we're in conversation, the conversation is not about us. It's not about our products. It's not about our services. It is not about how can I sell my stuff. It is not about that. It is about them. It is about us giving them an experience once again. And so the way that I like to do this is there's a couple questions that I might ask to start a conversation. So one of the questions I like to ask is, what are you working on right now that's got you most jazzed, most excited, most fired up right now? I guarantee you, Any entrepreneur you ask that question of, they're gonna get very animated as they start telling you about what they're working on, what they got going on. And as you are listening to them share with you, we are not waiting for our turn to talk next. We are not thinking in the back of our mind, what am I going to say next? When am I going to get my opportunity to talk about my thing? And so that I can let them just let all of that go. Let all of that chatter go and just be completely engaged in the conversation, listening to them, actively listening to them. Because here's what's going to happen when they're sharing and you start saying, okay, well, Rodman, you just told me about this. And like, how does that fit in with this? And like, what, we start asking questions because we're genuinely interested. What happens is we give them this experience that they hardly ever get to have, which we give them the experience and give them the gift of feeling seen, heard, and understood. And when we give people that gift, it is such a rare experience. They want more of that. And the way that they get more of that is by spending more time around us. And so when we give them that experience, trust me, you're gonna get around to talking about you because they're gonna get to a point and they're gonna be like, Kev, okay, enough about me. I don't know anything about you or what you do. I want to learn more about you because we just gave them this incredible experience. That's how we start meaningful conversations that are going to help us make a real impact, grow our business, connect with more people who genuinely want to be around us.
Lead with selfless service
Yes.
instead of selfish service.
I love that. I love that,
Yeah.
Rodman.
What about, and so then is this something you think people, is this I don't know, maybe a once a week exercise? I mean, for me, it'd be like, if I'm going to start doing this exercise and I'm going to start building these relationships, I mean, I might make it a habit to do X amount of outreaches per week just to tell people, just to learn about people.
Well, so I will tell you that for me in my life, and I might be extreme just because of the role that I hold in people's lives, but I am in relationships and conversations with people every single day during the work week. Maybe not on weekends and stuff, but during the work week, I'm having at least one or two conversations like this a day, if not more. But minimum one or two. It's just on my calendar every day because I'm constantly showing appreciation for people. And not just even in my business world, not even with with my wife, with my daughter, with my son, with my grandchild. I'm going to tell you what, you start showing your kids genuine appreciation and praising them, man, for the stuff that you see in them. I'll tell you what, how are we doing on time, Rodman?
Now, I want to, I'll take what you got. What do you got a
Well,
story?
I've had this experience with my daughter, Caitlin. Caitlin is now 32. And this happened when she was in college. But her and I went to this retreat, this father daughter retreat, and it was for entrepreneur parents and their kids. And at that retreat, one of the things that they had us do is they broke the parents and the kids up, and for the parents, what I knew was going on, they were telling us, write a letter to your child telling them all the things that you appreciate about them. Well, they took the kids into another room and told them to do the same exact thing. And then, so after lunch that day, it was at a retreat. It was right on the ocean down in Florida and stuff, and it was just this beautiful thing. So after lunch, they had us go together, and they said, okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to go with your daughter, with your son, and you are going to go and you're going to take turns reading each other the letter that you wrote. You're not going to add to it. You're just going to read the letter word for word as you wrote it. And so I read this letter to my daughter, and she was in absolute tears because she's like, my gosh, Dad, she goes, I didn't know that you thought all that about me. I
Mm.
had no idea that you thought all those things. And I'm like, I think this stuff all the time about you, honey. And she goes, Dad, you never told me. And I'm
Mm.
like, I'm going to start telling you.
Yeah.
I'm going to start telling you. I'm not just going to keep this in my head. I think my daughters, I need to let you know. And so I have always done that now with all my kids. And
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, like I said, there's not a person on the face of this earth that gets too much appreciation. When we just show up that way for people, I'm going to tell you what, you want to make connections because you're going to connect. You're going to connect.
Yeah. And life is so much more fulfilling that way. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, people go through life. If you're not sharing it with people, if you're not sharing the experiences with people, if you're not sharing the successes and the failures and every bit of how you feel about somebody, you're doing a great disservice
Yeah.
to not only yourself, but to your family and to the people who you have in your life. But Kevin, number one, I feel very blessed that you and I have had a chance to get to know each other, and I've had an opportunity to get to meet you and learn about you and what you do. But I also want other people to be able to find you, learn more about you, learn about who you are and what you do. Where would you want people to go to find you?
So I do have a website. It's more of a placeholder than anything. It's at maximum-response.com, and there's a little form on there that if you fill that out, it'll come directly to me. So I'll get that. I'm really actively engaged on Facebook. Kevin the Connector on Facebook, and I'll tell you what I would love if you wanted to connect with me on Facebook. What I would love to see happen is you take that active appreciation challenge. You do that. You have that experience for you and for the people in your life. And so that way, when you message me from the website or when you message me from Facebook and stuff, you get to tell me about your experience with that. And like, what a cool way to start a relationship that will be. And so I'll just throw that out there and just challenge you to accept that and have that experience for you and for some of the people in your life. And I am just stoked to hear about your experience with that if you decide
I'd
to
love
reach
to
out.
read some of those. Yeah, that'd be that. For sure to hear about what other people's experiences are. I am going to do that. I'm going to go through, and it's been a while, and I'm one of those guys. I forget what my kids say. They say, "Dad, you're always glazing people," and I'm like, "What?" They're like, "You're just covering everybody with sweetness." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess that's a good thing."
I like that. You're
Yeah,
glazing people, Dad.
I had no idea what they were even talking about. But, I was just complimenting somebody who's doing a great job, from United Airlines of all places. And they're like, Dad, you're always glazing people. But that's great. It'd be great to see what people come back and their responses with that. But the very last question I've got for you, Kevin, before I let you go, and I ask this at the end of every episode, but if you could go back in time, sit down with your younger self and give your younger self your one piece of strongest advice, the most valuable advice that you think you could give your younger self, what would that be?
When I was young, I felt like such the nerd, such the geek, like I didn't fit in. And my dad passed away at the end of my 10th grade year. My mom sent me to private school, and man, when I went to that private school, I found my peace. I totally fit in
Mm.
there, and I think that is why I'm so intent on doing what I do now. Is I just want to help other people find their peace.
Mm.
And here's the thing: we just get to be us, complete with our gifts, our God given gifts and abilities, and what we might perceive as our faults or our shortcomings. It's okay. There's this thing of like nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Just be you. Just show up and just be yourself and just do what feels in alignment for you because other people are going to resonate with that. Everybody is looking for just people who are real and not trying to be somebody else, but it's okay to be us. And I tell my kids this all the time because you know what? They're always trying to fit in too and feeling like they got to do certain things to fit in and be accepted. No, you don't. You just get to just be you, and you will fit in and be accepted by the right people. And I'll give you the same advice I give my own kids.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because I have been. My daughter's getting ready to go to San Diego State. She's going to be a freshman. I take her to college in 2 days.
Wow. Wow.
I know it's just crazy. But for me, I just keep telling her the same thing. It's like when you go there, you'll find your people, but just be yourself.
Yeah.
You'll all come together. You'll find one another. You'll thrive. I said, but the worst thing that you could potentially do if you get there is to try to be somebody else, somebody that you're not, because you'll attract all the wrong people
That's right.
into your
That's
life.
right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you in a million different ways. So thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure, Rodman.